What does it mean to you when people say innovation?
To me, it means they're very confused.
Okay. In what way?
People mix up innovation with improvements, like Kaizen, subtle improvements, making something better or more or different. And it's not like that at all. It has to do with what's new, nova, innovate. And you can't get there by computation. You can't get there by thinking. You can't get there by digitalization. All of those systems are based on something that happened in the past. You look at the internet sometimes.
Oh, once in a while.
A lot of garbage in there.
Yeah.
It's not just a trash bin. It's a whole dump of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to innovate, and then people talk about AI and innovation, I work with your engineers, and we struggle to communicate. Because you take all that garbage in, garbage out, and you put it into a trash compactor, and what you get is AI. And AI doesn't think, it doesn't calculate. The way it operates has nothing to do with intelligence, has nothing to do with the way people think or understand.
Yeah, what I always think about is how much money is getting put into AI and how little money is getting put into HI, human intelligence.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So there's a imbalance.
Imbalance. I see a teeter-totter, how do you call it in German?
Yeah.
With a flea on one side and an elephant on the other. And everybody's focused on AI, which is frankly carrying us away from systemic awareness or systems thinking, if you would call it that.
So what is true innovation to you?
New, right? And a new intelligence, evolving intelligence would be innovation. A psychologist, interestingly enough, wrote a book on economics. And he measured the way people think. And he said that when people use intuition and they have a sudden insight, that is always wrong. And when people take a long time and spend years developing an idea, it's equally as wrong. He called the book Thinking Fast and Slow. He won a Nobel Prize in economics, even though he was a psychologist. People have the notion that innovation has something to do with thinking or ideas or choices or something, thought patterns, pattern recognition, and it's none of that. Okay?
It's interesting to me how sometimes it's easier to say what it isn't than what it is.
Yes.
It's almost you're describing and you're walking around in circles and saying what it's not to get closer to what it is. Because how can you really put true innovation into words? The moment you define it is not much of an innovation anymore.
Physics is a bad metaphor. Science is a bad metaphor for innovation. Science is based on what's called the scientific method. That's 1500, 1600, way back in the day. And if you don't follow rules that are 400 years old, then it's not considered science. Science is fairly irrelevant when it comes to innovation. Oh, I can hear the groans of the scientists right now. Music is a better metaphor. Okay. And of course, you're a violinist and a musician and classical, and I think that your musical awareness is what attracted you to bringing me on board your team. Music is not about tones or frequencies or calculations. Music is off. The distance between C and D and D and E and E and F, they're not the same. They are what's pleasing to the ear. So what you're dealing with now are fractions or fractals of intervals. You're dealing with the spaces between tones or between wave patterns. And human intelligence, it's a beautiful thing. We have compassion, we have desire, we care about people, we want to get people what they want. Our companies are designed to build products that, with the end user, as we say, in mind. What is this going to do for people? But then we promise them self-driving cars, and then we give them 140 characters, or we give them Twitter or X, or pretty much complete nonsense. If the internet is a massive garbage dump for all of the silliness that people are up to, then AI is its trash compactor. It crams it down to things that are quite functional. I mean, if you want to, let's say, have SpongeBob sing a song to you in the style of the Beatles, you can't beat AI. For designs and art and anything that has been done, AI can drag it up and mush it together in all kinds of different ways. But can it do anything original? It's not even vaguely close. Can it do anything that's never been done before, never been seen before, never been explored before? It doesn't have any curiosity. Without curiosity, you don't have the intervals that allow knowledge to have meaning.
I found it very interesting what you said about music, and I don't know how you phrased it, but essentially the difference between the different notes is not mathematically all the same.
Right.
For example, with playing violin, if you think about, let's say, a G sharp and an A flat, mathematically those are the same notes. But on a violin, you would actually play them with a different finger, or you can, because it isn't the same.
It isn't the same.
Yeah.
And there's innovation right there. Nothing is the same. Nothing is the same. And here's the thing, a young child, a very young child, they already think that way. But then they learn language from their parents, and as soon as the little one says no, an argument appears, right? And a clash of wills appears. So let's say authentic innovation, let's call it that, AI, authentic innovation. It occurs in a kind of an emptiness. It's not, as the word, if you define the word curiosity, it's hunger for something, for desire without attachment. They have all these, and as you say, it's none of those things. And then that child's mind is noticing that there's a field, and the field is a field of all possibilities, and that's where you get into transcending quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is a incredibly limiting view of things. It's very helpful. It helped us build transistors, which helped us build chips, which helped us build our computers. These are useful toys, useful calculators, useful memory banks, and certainly, other than a few savant people like Kim Peek, it remembers more than most of us can. And when you equate memory or anything that has happened or is known with new, immediately it cancels out the possibility of authentic discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whichever company fully embraces this, when you take your teams into a company, that company has a brilliant flash. There comes a moment of awareness, and it's really literally that their frustration comes up because they're thinking, let's say, all wrong. They're thinking fast, they're thinking slow, and it's always wrong. Everybody's wrong, but everybody wants to be right. So then your teams confront people with the limitations in all the ways that we're trained to think. Anything that be said in words has no basis in reality.
Mm-hmm.
I love you. Okay, what does that mean?
And it means a lot of different things to different people.
A lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you say love, it means this, it means that. There's erotic love, there's a filial love, there's affection. But the truth is, the words don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mean anything. But when you are in the experience, in the direct, immediate, and all-consuming moment of love, you might even say there, I love you, but it's after the fact. It was always after the direct experience. And the only place innovation can happen is in the direct experience. That's very frustrating for people who have spent 18 years, 20 years in an education system learning definitions, numbers, numeric formulas, and calculations. But in fact, the very nature of human consciousness, if you look into the work of Roger Penrose,
Mm-hmm.
who happens to be a physicist, but he's not bound by his profession. He happens to be a Nobel laureate, but that doesn't really inflate his ego. And when you have him look at this thing of consciousness, and particularly levels of consciousness, they're not computational. They can't be computed. They can't be described. So what is indescribable? Except without the word indescribable. So you say indescribable, you think of, it means, and then now you're off the point. So that flash of awareness, and when it comes, two things occur with people at the same moment. One is enormous frustration of all the paradoxes and contradictions in their minds, in their hearts, in their feelings, between what they think, what they feel, their ideas, their opinions, all get shown up to be false. And with that comes a flash of rage. And then with the flash of rage becomes almost blind fury. They're literally blinded by light. They're having a conversation, and in the next moment, and we see this all the time in your training sessions, suddenly they're blinded by the light, and like somebody shot a flash bulb in their face, and they're disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not comfortable at first because there's nothing to hold on to, and you can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? That means you're on the verge of actually seeing, and seeing not in the sense of visual, but in the sense of profound awareness of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a flash bulb in the face? Well, you were a model, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
And then as the light fades and the emotions dissipate and all their ideas dissipate, then the room comes into focus, and it isn't what you thought it was. And the people aren't what you thought they were. And nothing is anything that you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this tremendous disorientation, and then there's a reorientation into a world that's more vivid. It's a successive approximation of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you never get to reality, but they shift suddenly into a far deeper awareness which occurs through communication. It only can happen through communication and through specific circuits of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback has to be incredibly precise. When a company learns this, they find out that what they call feedback can be complaining, chastising, encouraging, pressuring, pushing, trying, thinking. And it's none of those things. It's a flash. It's like lightning, and it's a shock. In that shock, when somebody from engineering, somebody from marketing, somebody from who's a stockholder, somebody who is a worker, when several people from many different departments are in the same room, and that brilliant, bam, not knowing, not seeing becomes the actual seeing. And what happens now is called noticing. A good example, Steve Jobs. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
People think he's a great innovator. Maybe.
Good marketer.
He was a wonderful marketer.
Mm-hmm.
No two ways about it. And creative and so on. So his team brings him the concept of the iPhone. And he says, oh, this is something you would read sitting on the toilet. And he's very rude about it. And he throws him out of the room. And he later goes to see a doctor, and he finds out that he has pancreatic cancer and likely only a few months to live. And what comes to his mind? He doesn't want his legacy to be, I made a computer that was a little better than the others. I sold a few more than most people. What flashes in his mind is that iPhone. Here's a gadget, a supercomputer in every pocket that will connect literally every human on Earth with every other human on Earth at no cost with a visual feed. And he saw it in a flash, but not until he came face to face with death. You know, in that moment, he had his brilliant flash. Now, we try not to kill people in your trainings.
Yeah, I do my best.
I love that your teams get the same effect, but with gentleness, with humor, with unexpected ideas, with puzzles that stop the mind and allow them to see suddenly the radiance, or what in physics is called super radiance, a quantum experience, a quantum event at room temperature. Mm-hmm. Which is occurring at a level, interesting, a mosquito can see it, but a human can't. And then suddenly there it is. You see it. And now you can't distinguish from white. It's like a flash bulb. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then suddenly all of the colors appear, but they don't appear according to their frequencies. Like blue is a certain frequency, red is a certain frequency. They appear holographically. So all the colors are within each of all the other colors. And there are millions and billions of colors. And in that awareness, it's so much color that what you see is white. It appears white. Okay? Mm-hmm. But then as you come back to your senses, your normal 5 senses or 23 senses or however they count that now, you're more finely tuned. Your sensors are wide open. And you're noticing things in the people around you that you hadn't noticed before. Maybe you had an idea about somebody, and now you look at them and you don't have an idea. Now it's that you are, let's say, communicating at a certain frequency and with specific intervals. And you begin to think together, you begin to see together, you begin to see through each other's eyes. So at the moment of, you're going to die in a few months, poof, something gets very, very clear. Jensen Huang, I don't know what triggered it for him. He noticed that people are trying to use regular computers to use AI, and it's not working. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to build chips that are smaller and smaller and smaller and faster and faster and faster, Moore's law and all that. And then what he realizes suddenly is for people to have access to artificial intelligence, they got to have bigger chips. So he builds a 70-pound chip. Now, what made him do that? Where did that new awareness come from? He didn't think of that. He and his team together noticed what everybody was trying to do and that they didn't have the right tool for that. And so they pieced together that collectively through their communication. They pieced that tool together. Bam, you've got NVIDIA. And it only cost them about maybe $600 billion to build that. A couple of years later, China matches that for $6 million. The next incarnation of that is going to cost $600,000, and then it's going to cost $6,000, and then it's going to cost $6 and be a little piece of plastic. You use it once and throw it in the trash bin because the next incarnation of it's already so far beyond the one you used for the last week that it's already obsolete. So now you're looking at innovation not as little incremental Kaizen, just in time. By the way, Toyota didn't come up with that idea for just in time delivery. Piggly Wiggly did. The American head of Toyota was trying to drive a Toyota across the U.S. It kept breaking down. And in frustration, he went into a Piggly Wiggly and to buy some snacks. And he noticed that they only got the products right when they needed them. And he took that back to Toyota, and then they gave it a name, just-in-time delivery. And then as all companies do, and all scientists do, and as all of us do, tag their name on it and give it a Japanese name. But what really happened is when his car wouldn't work and he couldn't drive it across the country to prove that it was an adequate product, then he had that frustration. He blew his mind. He had his brilliant flash. He walked into a Piggly Wiggly and he noticed, it's a grocery store, by the way.
I am aware.
Okay. He noticed just-in-time delivery. He saw it in action. It's like, what are you going to say then? Wow. Like, look at that. And if you say, look at that, the guys who are with him, his team, they look and they don't see that. He says, no, not that. Look at that. Look at that process that's behind it. Look at the force of what's happening there. Look at the forces that are converging for this just-in-time delivery to be working. And slowly, as he tries to communicate it to them, it dawns on them what they're seeing. And now they apply that to building cars. And next thing you know, they're the number one automaker on the planet. That's innovation. We call it the art of seeing, but that's confusing too because it's not eyesight. It's noticing systems and interactions of very complex systems, but when you notice them, they're just dead simple, just natural. Like if you ask a Canadian like me, hey, you want to go to dinner? And you say, well, hey, does a bear shit in the woods? And that means, of course I do. Okay, it's Canadian. It's a little crude, but it's just as natural as anything else in nature. It's just what is unfolding right in front of your eyes. Now, NVIDIA invested all that money. Now you've got thousands of companies, each investing billions of dollars to try to get better at a kind of thinking that's alien. AI, alien intelligence. It's not related to what's going on in nature. It's not related to human nature. It's going to design things, but it's not going to design anything that's interesting to humans or to nature. It's out of sync. It's out of step. It's still useful for exploring auxiliary and ancillary factors, but it's not intelligent. It doesn't feel. It doesn't have compassion. It isn't thinking about your children and their children and their children's children. It doesn't have billions of years of evolution in it. That is a very human thing, and it's not happening in the brain or even in the mind, but rather in the connection between people, in the communication between people. Now, physics fades away. It's no longer the highest form of science. And now philosophy has to come into play. Okay? And then after that, you have to go into sociology and into what is a double bind, what is a paradox, what is thinking. And then you finally end up, and this is why I chose the field, in what is the psychology of discovery. Now, I know you've got built such a great team that this is just going to get more and more and more refined, because every company you go into, they learn from you, but you also learn from them. And so you've got this kind of traveling band of geniuses absorbing intelligence from everywhere and noticing things, and also sharing how they notice things. And what this does accelerate is accelerate innovation, that it's not fast or slow, it's instantaneous. Pretty much the proven way to innovate is that you set up a field of communication that includes your top people, but also connects to everybody in the organization through infotainment or whatever. But there's a core group who aligns their communication and their feedback methodology. And what happens then is they become tuned into a quantum field. Even when you talk about a quantum computer, it still works with qubits. I find it interesting that when Noah built the ark, God said it has to be so many cubits by so many cubits. But of course, it's a different spelling and a different meaning. But even quantum computers can't even begin to compare with what happens when people achieve an ability to shift intervals together, when they really can communicate with patterns of feedback, and they suddenly have a series of those brilliant flashes together. And now you're getting true quantum awareness, quantum attunement. This is a great achievement and not hard, not difficult. When Pele came and brought Brazilian soccer to, you say football, right?
Fußball.
Fußball, yeah. To Germany, they were really playing. That ball was bouncing off every part of their body. They were laughing, they were playing, and nobody had ever seen anything like that before. Very often when I have worked, I don't work anymore. In certain countries, they go, "You're not taking this seriously." Well, tell Pele, you know. There's something in the humor, humor meaning a certain transcending of vibration, a tone that transcends vibration. You say it, synergy or synchronicity, and it's a beautiful thing when it happens. Now, the company that can get that and take that into a dimension of duration, it's not just three-dimensional noticing, but now you're beginning to notice constantly and consistently together. And what you thought was your company dissolves behind you, and you're in a whole new arena. Elon Musk calculates, and his philosophy is faster. Go faster and break things. And then if a big company like Volkswagen or a Chinese BYD imitates that, that's a pack of fools following an idiot, because he's just pressuring people to do things faster and break things. But in the end, for example, his cars cause far more pollution than they supposedly save by not burning petroleum. And then what do you do with all that leftover trash that you used to construct that car and all of those precious metals that you had to manipulate politics to gain control of. And so he's causing far more problems than he's solving. But then by the time it gets onto the internet, faster. Break things. Just do something and see what happens. Slow down. Stop completely and let that communication fall into place. And when it does, everybody sees something together in the same moment. And so what is innovation? It's that. It's humans using communication to create a transformation in innovation, in the process of innovation itself.